Fans, welcome to this week's Sports Chats here at Jason's video, which we just demolished on our way to the set.
In my defense, I ain't really fat. I've got a big coat on.
Not a whole lot going on this week. Big thing, college basketball wise, we had UT UK.
Yeah, it's terrible end result, but a solid first half. Tennessee just could not make three-pointers. If Tennessee could have made a few threes, I think they had a good shot at winning the game. Kentucky, of course, they were going to get the calls. They always do. They did. Their fans complained. Their fans are jackals. But just, you really got to make your outside shots against an inside power team. And Tennessee's defense, or what was most impressive, they shot around 55% almost from the floor in the first half on mainly a strong inside game. And no one's been able to do that to Kentucky all year long. Kentucky has 3 7-footers. And, you know, the best bench money can buy. And the best starters money can buy. And really, really loaded NBA. I mean, they're not an all-time great team. That's hyperbole. You're always going to get hyped. And I pointed out to some people on Twitter that were talking about it. The UCLA teams that won 10 championships in 12 years or so on, eight in a row, whatever. Well, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is probably the greatest college basketball player ever played. And they had just as many All-Americans as Kentucky on their bench and on their roster. And they had Kareem, he's a 7'2", LeBron's James.
And they were all seniors.
They were juniors and seniors. Freshmen didn't even play in that era. And they would stay at UCLA their entire career because they were making more money at UCLA than they could make in the NBA. So they had no motivation to leave early. I mean, Kareem could hit 20-foot hook shots. And his sky hook was the most unstoppable shot that's ever been until Michael Jordan's fadeaway came along. I mean, Kareem was unstoppable. This team wouldn't hold a candle to those teams and those senior-laden teams. They would get beat by 25 or 30 points, I would guess. And basketball is a sport where eras translate a lot better because basketball, pretty much the same game all the time. It didn't evolve like football, or quite so much as football as far as size goes, and just the huge size offensive lineman and defensive lineman got to in football. And there have always been big basketball players and athletes. So, anyways, a tough loss. Ended up being a little bit wide of a margin toward the end. Kentucky was able to get a little run, which is not surprising. I said Tennessee doesn't have depth. Tennessee has basically 9 scholarship players right now.
There were a couple guys that played that I've not seen all year against Kentucky.
Kentucky has 10 McDonald's All-Americans on their roster. 8 or 10 basically first-round NBA draft choices. As I pointed out also on Twitter, I think Calipari's had 12 or 13 lottery picks. And that's people who are taken in the first 10 or 11 selections of the draft. He's managed an entire one championship out of those lottery. Not a very good ratio of lottery picks to championships. And Dean Smith was on a similar level. And Dean finally did win 2 championships. But it's just, and he has a lot of talent that goes through his program. And as you can see it with Tyndall. I mean, Tyndall had his guys. He had his game plan. Calipari is just going to have athletes that are going to come try to out-muscle you, out-athlete you, outrun you, or whatever.
And, of course, the other big college basketball thing was Duke UNC last night.
Yeah, I really don't like either team. It's a shame one of them had to win, so that's about all that goes with that. You keep hoping, and I don't see how North Carolina's program should probably get flushed completely down the NCAA toilet after their 30-year now, apparently, academic fraud that they had going. I mean, it was going under Dean Smith, it was going under Roy Williams, it was going under the old dude that filled in for, like, at the end of Dean Smith that Jerry Green managed to lose to get to the Final Four. I can't remember his name right now, but he was about 100 when he took over. But it's a multi-coach, multi-decade corruption of student athletics in North Carolina. The NCAA seems to be ignoring it mostly. But it wouldn't surprise me if they prosecute it fairly. North Carolina may be stripped of a lot of wins, and they may be stripped of a lot of their championships, 3 championships or so like that. But Duke, no clean sister either. I mean, there's been major allegations against Duke before, but the NCAA seems to not really care to make them stick. I mean, Corey Maggette, after he left Duke, apparently with some acrimony, admitted that he got $70,000 to come to Duke, and his mother got a job high place in the Duke Athletic Administration office for coming to Duke. It's not a surprise. I mean, you're in basketball. In college football, there's a lot of cheating going on, but because the teams are so much smaller and you only need 5, 10, 6 players, whatever, maybe 3 or 4 impact players, the cheating that goes on in college can get to much more extreme levels, unless it's Alabama. They were paying $250,000 for overweight offensive linemen from Memphis, just so Tennessee couldn't have them. College basketball, especially, it's ran by high school football too. Is more. It's your high school. You only play for your high school. It's your coach. You play for your coach. You don't see a lot of AAU type, maybe some 7-on-7 leagues is about it you'll see, and that really doesn't affect recruitment. Almost all high school basketball recruiting happens outside of the school, it happens away from your high school coach, and it goes to your AAU coach. Well, Memphis, for example, when Calipari was there, sweetheart deal with Nike. Nike AAU. All the great Nike AAU players started going to Memphis. Go to Kentucky. Sweet deal with Nike. LeBron James constantly at there dealing with Kentucky. All the great AAU players from the Nike teams start going to Kentucky. It just really corrupt, like I say, in it. Big time money flows into the AAU programs. Now, you got Adidas schools, like probably some Reebok schools.
Maybe some British Knights.
I don't know about British. Maybe in Converse. I'm not sure exactly where AAU team is part of me. And if your school's a Nike school and you're recruiting a player that plays for a Nike team, you're going to have a competitive advantage over it because their coach of that team that the recruit's going to is getting paid a lot of money by the same brand that your school is under. And you see, when that money, I didn't know, you just follow the money trail, and like the AAU basketball is notoriously dirty for things like that. And AAU coaches, $50,000, $60,000. I mean, it's basically the Albert Means situation, but not a high school coach. Where Albert Means, the Alabama booster gave him $60,000, I think, and promised. The reason that came out, he was promised, $250,000, but I don't think he ever actually paid out with his mother. She was not happy about that. If your mother is selling her son and you don't pay her, she's going to get mad and turn you in.
Yeah, I mean, it's like living in an Asian culture where just selling your kids is okay.
I mean, in Asia, there's the only thing worse than if being born in Asia is being born in Africa.
It's true. On to the high school level, there's not been a lot to talk about sports-wise. We're about to start spring. We've got, baseball, softball, track, tennis, men's soccer coming up.
Of course, as of now, there's not even any practice going on anywhere for anything because it's like the land of Ilsa out there and everything's frozen. So school's been off for a week and a half now, and practices, of course, are canceled because of the weather. Now, normally if school was out, they would still have some practices as long as the players were healthy enough to make it, because it was out for illness last week. And but this week, weather's terrible, so just no practice, no track practice, no tennis, just kids pedaling their thumbs and sweating.
It is really hard to get out and practice track in weather like this.
Yeah, I mean,
baseball and softball, there's some stuff you can do indoors. It's really hard you don't have a good indoor surface to do track.
I mean, just getting to the place to do it, any of the sports, it's been dangerous this week. But the road conditions are terrible, still terrible out there right now, especially in any parking lots and any side roads and nothing else. So, I mean, at best, I would imagine the track athletes are probably at home resting up for the season, or maybe just doing some personal conditioning. I'm sure some of them do that. The long spring, probably turn warm here in a couple of weeks, get a lot of stuff kicked off. I mean, UT's entire first week of baseball has been canceled.
Well, Tennessee Tech was postponed. Rutgers is just canceled.
They canceled an entire 4-game series with Rutgers because there's just no way for them to make it up later on in the season. It gets down to it, and you're on the borderline of going to the College World Series. That may be 3 or 4 wins against Rutgers you're not going to have on your schedule now. You're not going to have on your record now. So hopefully the NCAA selection committee, and hopefully Tennessee's good enough to make it. I mean, Serrano's got them going in the right direction. But hopefully they can take into account that they just were forced to cancel a bunch of games. And we live far enough north. That's a disadvantage for Tennessee. I mean, the weather is often bad here in the spring. We get more cancellations than they do further south, and it affects even Missouri most of anybody in the SEC because they're probably
further north than we are.
75, 80 miles, 100 miles latitude-wise north of even Lexington. And they had a bunch of postponements of games last year for bad weather, and ended up being pretty terrible. They couldn't get any rhythm going. They didn't have their team. You play these preseason games to try to get your team in rhythm, get everything going.
And it's not a long time before you just jump right into conference play.
Oh yeah, I mean, you only have a few games, just like everywhere. You only have a few games, and then you're in the middle of conference play, and it makes it tough when you have to hit the ground in conference play without having played any games prior to that, really. And with the weather forecast for next week,
who knows when
Tennessee's going to get a play again, because apparently it's supposed to snow next Tuesday, which is Tuesday night, the night of the week they usually play on. And it may snow next Friday and Saturday again, and of course they play Friday, Saturday, Sunday series.
It's looking like the weather is, at least delayed my wrestling comeback.
That's very likely. Terrible weather over towards, all of East Tennessee and most of the state of Tennessee for Friday night and Saturday. So who knows whether you'll be able to make it over to Crossville. And
I certainly don't want to get iced in Crossville.
Return to the ring and anger the folks of Crossville.
Yeah, I mean, it's just. I'm not one of these who just dies in the wintertime. I prefer the summer. Man, it does play havoc on schedules when it does this.
But other than that, this has been a short week. Tennessee, hope they can get back in the win column coming this weekend. It will take almost a miracle. They probably have to win every game the rest of the season
or the SEC tournament,
or win the entire SEC tournament to make the NCAA at this point. But for this team, if it can hold on, right now they're 14-11. If they can finish above 500, get the NIT. I mean, it's not a season you never want the NIT, but considering the losses we have with 8 players leaving right before the season starts, replacing those 8 players, one of them transferring already, the other one who looked like the best young player on the team getting injured early and being out for the year. I said we're down to 8, 9 scholarship players, and I think it's only that because we have a walk-on that we put on scholarship, and you're playing teams with 8 or 10 All-Americans on them. It's tough sledding in this first year. The luck, that Tyndall suspension, there's been talk lately that it's going to be a 3-game suspension. I don't know for that. Nobody's confirmed it. If he actually only gets a 3-game, the big thing is they're supposed to get the letter by the end of the month. And that should be Tennessee's portion of it, and they should know how to proceed at that point. The rest of it will be dealt with Southern Miss, which is supposed to come out in July. But Tennessee should know where it stands with Tyndall at the end of February. That will allow his recruiting to clear up, and we've already got a top 30 player committed for 2016. Be tough to hold on to because he's a really good player, big guy, 6'8", power forward, but he can shoot, run forward. We'll see where it goes. It's important to get that NCAA letter of inquiry out of the way and see where Tyndall stands.
And fans, that'll about do it for this week. We'll see you next week on probably another Frozen Sports Chat.